Hello guys, welcome to this channel. Today we are going to review Creed 3. I didn't have any time to do an initial reaction because I pretty much had to pick up and leave right away. My dad was texting when I was in the theater, so I'm just going to review it here. And not much to say, but I'm going to do some Rocky rankings. Definitely the movies, a villain's tier list probably, or opponents, maybe the final fights, and maybe the training montages, but I don't know. I also have Scream stuff and DCEU stuff. So without further ado, let's get into it. Starting off with this movie's about, this movie has Creed officially retired from boxing, and now he's sort of recommending people and training people in his gym to become champions and train this champion Felix and whatever. And then one day after the gym, he stumbles upon one of his friends his brother growing up, practically, you know what I mean. But he went to prison for about 18 years, and he meets up with him after so many years, and they sort of digress. And this movie kind of goes back in his past and sort of takes Damien out of there, and then brings him to the forefront. So Damien wants to become a champion, so Adonis recommends him to fight Felix, his champion at the moment. And then Damien wins, and then Adonis has to train to fight him. So, yeah, not only the good, and starting off the good, I think this movie really showcases its opponent/villain very well. Damian Anderson. Jonathan Majors just plays his character perfection. He just does a great job. He's really starting to break through the industry and becoming like an A-list actor. They casted him for Kang in the MCU, and he did a great job there, and he did a great job as Dame Anderson here. So I'm excited to see what this guy does with the rest of his career. And overall, he just does a great job as this character of Damian Anderson. You really believe that he felt like he was being sort of betrayed by his past life, or not his past life, but his sort of past self, where like he went to prison, Adonis ran, and he was there for 18 years or whatever, and then he comes out and kind of is just starting to build up sort of a beef with Adonis. And I think really you understand why, you believe it, and I think it leads to a pretty satisfying final fight where and then in the end when they're cool again, but you understand why they're cool again. So Jonathan Majors just also does a great job. You believe him sort of as an actual boxer, it makes sense, and he's just this big guy, and yeah, I think he's one of the best Rocky opponents that we've had yet. And I think the way Adonis deals with that is also really interesting. So what they did with this character and how they sort of deep dived into Adonis' past, I think it works very well. And I just think Damian Anderson was just a fantastic Rocky villain opponent, whatever you want to call it, or Creed villain opponent. And I think the way he fights is interesting, where he goes right for the underarm and tries to tries to injure instead of tries to box. And I think he's you can see him sort of as an actual fighter, and I think that's what works well about him. And him going against is sort of the underdog going against his champion. It's nothing like the Rocky fight, whereas Rocky sort of comes in and sort of beats him, but like Damian basically kills the guy, and I think the way that all plays out actually works very well. So I think in the end, they treated this character very well. They didn't mess around with it at all. In the end, I think they did this character justice, and then the way they deep dive into Adonis' past, and we never really got to see that up to this point, and we saw it a little bit in the first Creed with him getting out of the children home or whatever you want to call it, and then put into with his mother, and then also you don't get anything really in Creed 2. And then in this movie, you really get to see what actually happened between him and Damien. And then you see them, they beat up this guy, and then Damien pulled out a gun and then tried to shoot the guy to protect Adonis. But then what happened was he went to prison, and then Adonis practically abandoned him. And then Damien really feels that, and then took that into account, and then sort of went on with the rest of his. But then Adonis got to go on with the rest of his life, while Damien was stuck there and stuck in the past, sort of. And I think the way all of those played out worked really well. I think they're going to do even more with this character as the franchise goes on, assuming if it does. And then I think Michael B. Jordan did prove that he could actually do good directing style. It doesn't really feel like a Rocky movie aesthetically and tonally, but I have some issues with that, but I'll talk about that with later. And I think the aesthetics of this movie has a bit of a more colorful appearance to it, I guess, and less lighting, I guess. I don't know. I feel like I just noticed that. And overall, I think it works. I don't have anything wrong with it. I think the fights here are a lot more brutal than they were before. Fairly realistic for boxing matches here. I think this one and the first Creed might have the most realistic ones that we've had up to this point. The Rocky ones are not all that realistic. A lot of dunking, a lot of blocking. Like the way Damien does the cross arms is interesting. I thought, and overall, I came out of the theater and just kind of enjoying this movie. And in the end, I thought it was real. I thought it was really good. I really did enjoy it. So, yeah. I thought I did enjoy this one. Also, I like what they did with Adonis Creed, where like he realized he abandoned this guy and has all these regrets with it, and then Bianca's telling him to just move on, and then you see him deal with that, and then the way they end in good terms, I think, kind of makes it really satisfying. So in the end, all the stuff related to Damien and Adonis and their relationship works very well. And I think some of the training montages are pretty good. The fights are good too. So I think overall, I think this movie is just handled really well. I think some of the character drama is good. You see Adonis actually be a father to his new daughter Amara, and I thought all of that stuff worked, just like how Rocky was a father to his son, which makes sense. And overall, I thought all of that was just handled well, but it does have some issues. Now we have the mixed, and I think I'm going to talk about sort of the final fight and the style they go with. It does, if you haven't seen the movie, you might not know what I'm talking about, but it does this thing right in the middle. They kind of like sort of make it like seem like it's in the viewer, and it's what they're imagining, kind of like an anime fight. And I don't know how I feel about it, because on one hand, I like the ideas that they've thrown in there, where it's really just about these kind of two guys just duking it out in general, but it doesn't make it feel like a boxing match, and it just doesn't feel like it's like, oh wait, he's beating him. And I think that you're missing some of the fun commentary we have here in the behind the Rocky fights. We've never seen anything like this, and it takes me out of it. 'Cause I think what I like about seeing a Rocky movie is we get these Rocky style fights, and it doesn't really feel like that. So I don't know how I feel about that right now. Maybe it'll grow on me, but at the moment, I can't say I love it. I don't really like it or dislike it. I'm just kind of like whatever on it. Now we have the bad, and remember when I said it didn't really feel like a Rocky movie? Here's what I mean. So, even if you take out Sylvester Stallone, like aesthetically and tonally, it just doesn't. But like with Sylvester Stallone gone, you kind of miss that. So you kind of, I'm not really. It's not so much that I'm like asking the question, oh, where is Rocky? Because I think Damien stands on alone on his character, but you leave it so that it's not really about Creed. I don't think the Duke's son is that all that interesting of a character. So you don't really have the character side of Rocky as much in this movie. So like I feel like you do miss something in there. Like maybe not as much, not like that much. Like I'm not asking where's Rocky the entire movie, but I do feel like I'm missing something here, and I think that's a bit of a problem. I know it had nothing to do with the movie itself. He didn't like the producer. Sylvester Stallone didn't like the producer or something. But it makes it so that I just feel like I'm missing something. And another thing, the movie feels a lot darker at times, and maybe that's just the fights and the brutality of it. But like the way it all plays out, like I think the thing the Rocky franchise has always kept on is that it's always had this very like kind of lighthearted tone for the most part. And this one I think might be the darkest of all of them up to this point. Either this or Creed 2, but I mean you can sort of see that progression there. And I know these aren't the Rocky movies, and I kind of I'm not gonna say I grew up with them because I didn't watch them until I was a bit older, but I do watch the Rocky movies a lot more than I watch the Creed movies, so maybe that has something to do with it. But yeah. Also, like aesthetically, doesn't look like a Rocky movie. I mean, I guess or feel like one. It really like it doesn't really have like the usual sort of Rocky kind of tone to it, and that's kind of what's good. And that's kind of what's good about this movie, because also like it doesn't feel like we're repeating character arcs or anything. We're tapping into something new with Adonis's past, and we do see that. But at the same time, it's like, oh wait, is this still a Rocky movie? Yeah, but I feel like we're just missing something there. I can't seem to figure out what that is, and it's not Stallone, because I think a Creed can stand alone by himself just fine, and so I just can't figure out what that is exactly. But yeah. And then second thing, I feel like it does skip. I feel like there is like 20 minutes taken out of like the middle act of the movie, like between the time where Adonis is between the first fight with Dame and against Felix, and between that fight and like Adonis's. And between that and the final fight, it feels like something is taken out of there. Like it's like I think a good like maybe like 30 to 40 minutes before that in the training and when he challenges him, it feels like there's only like 20 minutes there, or maybe a little bit more. But it definitely feels like there's something taken out there, because like he immediately like just goes in and challenges him. It feels like we're just missing something there, and then while Dame is just like explaining stuff about Adonis, I feel like there's something missing there. I guess I don't know. It's not huge, but just first finish final score. I did dig this one quite a bit. I'm gonna give it an 8.3, 8.4 out of 10. 8.3. Yeah, that sounds about right. I did really enjoy this one, but I think this one will take some time to grow on me a bit more. But in the end, did really enjoy it. I enjoyed all the stuff they did with Damien. The fights are really good for the most part, and at least the choreography, even though the anime stuff didn't really work for me. But I enjoyed it. So tell me what you thought about this one in the comments below. Let me know if you think it's as good as the Creed movies. I will be ranking the Rocky and Creed movies relatively soon. And yeah, so thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment down below. See you next time. Adios.